So we'll start with the Heart Sutra on page 8 in our books. I prostrate to the Arya Triple Gem. Thus did I hear at one time the Bhagavan was dwelling on Massive Vulture's mountain in Rashagriha, together with a great community of monks and a great community of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Bhagavan was absorbed in the concentration on the categories of phenomena called profound perception. Also, at that time, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara looked upon the very practice of the profound perfection of wisdom and beheld those five aggregates as empty of inherent nature. Then, through the power of Buddha, the Venerable Shariputra said this to the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara: how should any son of the lineage train who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom? He said that, and the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara said this to the Venerable Shariputra: Shariputra, and either son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom should look upon it like this, correctly and repeatedly beholding those five aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. Form is empty, emptiness is form. Emptiness is not other than form. Form is also not other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discrimination, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, likewise, all phenomena are emptiness without characteristic, unproduced, unceased, stainless, not without stain, not deficient, not fulfilled. Shariputra, therefore, in emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no compositional factors, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no visual form, no sound, no odor, no taste, no object of touch, and no phenomenon. There is no I element, and so on up to including no mind element and no mental consciousness element. There is no ignorance, no extinction of ignorance, and so on, up to and including no aging and death, and no extinction of aging and death. Similarly, there is no suffering, origination, cessation, and path. There is no exalted wisdom, no attainment, and also no non-attainment. Shariputra, therefore, because there is no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on and dwell in the perfection of wisdom, the mind without obscuration and without fear. Having completely passed beyond error, they reach the end point of nirvana. All the Buddhas who dwell in the three times also manifestly, completely awaken to unsurpassable, perfect, complete enlightenment in reliance on the perfection of wisdom. Therefore, the mantra of the perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, the unsurpassed mantra, the mantra equal to the unequaled, the mantra that thoroughly pacifies all suffering should be known as truth, since it is not false. The mantra of the perfection of wisdom is declared, Tayata Om Gate Gate Padagate Padasam Gate Bodhi Soha. Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train in the profound perfection of wisdom like that. Then the Bhagavan arose from that concentration and commended the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, saying, well said, son of the lineage. It is like that, it is like that. One should practice the profound perfection of wisdom, just as you have indicated, even the Tathagatas rejoice. The Bhagavan, having thus spoken, the Venerable Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, those surrounding in their entirety, along with the worlds of gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, were overjoyed and highly praised that spoken by the Bhagavan. I prostrate to the gathering of the Dakinis in the three chakras who abide in the holy yoga of using space. By your powers of clairvoyance and magical emanation, look after practitioners like a mother her child. Akasamara Sashadara Samaya. Akasamara Sashadara Samaya. Tayata Gati Gati Padagati Padasam Gati Bodhi Soha. By the teachings of the three supreme jewels possessing the power of truth, may inner and outer hindrances be transformed, may they be dispelled, may they be pacified, may they be completely pacified. May all negative forces opposed to the Dharma be completely pacified. May the host of 80,000 obstacles be pacified. May we be separated from problems and harmful conditions to Dharma. May all enjoyments be in accord with the Dharma, and may there be auspiciousness and perfect happiness here, right now. Page 15, Mandala offering. Nitegen Padi Sangye Jindu Mikte Oaidroko Namadad Shin La Chu Pasho Jetsu Lama Dhamma Kinam Ichukala Yen Se Chuzin Trick Jita Zampe Lord Malazab Ngechuki Shapaku Solidam Guratna Mandala Kam Niriyatayami Sangye Chudon Sogye Chonama Janchu Badu Damni Kyapsuchi Dagi Chunyen Gi Personam Ki Drola Panche Sangye Drupa Sho Sangye Chudon Sogye Chonama Janchu Badu Damni Kyapsuchi Dagi Chunyen Gi Personam Ki Drola Panche Sangye Drupa Sho Sangye Chudon Sogye Chonama Janchu Badu Dabni Kapsuchi Dagi Chinyengi Pesonam Ki Drola Panchi Sange Drupashu. So as previously, we'll continue on now with reciting some refuge and bodhicitta prayers as advised by Kandrila for the health obstacles for Kebje Lama Zopa Rinpoche to be removed. You can recite in English or in Tibetan. Sangye Chodon Sake Chonamba Jantu Badu Dabni Kepsuchi Dagi Jinsoki Pesonam Ki Drola Pancha Sangye Dropa Sho Sangye Sangye chodun sake chonama chanchu pati dapni kapsuchi dagi chinsoke se sonam ki chola panche sangye drupa shu. Now, while reciting that, it always reminds me of how precious it is to have kept a Lama Zopa Rinpoche in our lives, and thinking back to the Bendigo retreat 2011, where Rinpoche manifested stroke, and all of a sudden we got urgently practicing all night, thinking we might have just had the last teaching, you know. So we can't always think that all the conditions are going to be there for our gurus to continue to be with us in you know, as we're all getting older and so forth, and to remind ourselves of how precious and rare an opportunity it is. So I encourage you all to continue to accumulate some recitations, and we have a tally here, or email welcome at, and there's tally up the outside to be able to add in any numbers you've accumulated. And I think we'll at the end of the month send off one lot. As we said, we'll, you know, let us know by the end of each month, so we'll send off for 1 month at a time.
Can I recommend doing it when you're driving the car if you're an impatient driver like I am? And then the car slows down in front of you, normally you go, but it's like there's now more time to do your mantras.
Yes, it's fantastic driving the car.
It's fantastic for me. It is. I'm a much
for me,
more
it
patient
is.
driver.
There you go. And this is the thing. I think Candrel has given us this advice so that it's good for our practice. Yeah. Funnily enough.
Yeah, to a mile in about 10-15 minutes.
Yeah, it's yeah. So
2 miles in each one.
Go for a walk and do a few miles. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we're continuing on with exploring the mind. And last time we were primarily looking at destructive emotions, a little bit about constructive emotions, but here we're starting to focus more on the constructive emotions. So you're starting with looking at the perspective from positive psychology. So there's a quote here from Martin Seligman from the book Flourish. When at the Happiness and Its Causes conference, when Martin was presenting from this book, and he asked us to order in the book. It was quite expensive and a hardback, so we didn't get too many. But then, as soon as he spoke, we had to go out and buy as many as we could. There were like so many orders for the book. So he says, we all know, mental well-being can be cultivated by analyzing the benefits of cultivating constructive states of mind, and by repeatedly generating constructive thoughts and attitudes in sustained contemplation. And then we would add on, and in meditation. So over the past few decades, positive psychology has gained an increasing amount of attention, both from helping professionals and researchers. This attention has resulted in many valuable insights in what contributes to a happy, fulfilling life. And here we see there's a lot of being written about, talked about in this space, you know, what it means to have a happy, fulfilling life that is not based on external material possessions and conditions, but on our inner well-being. In addition, positive psychology has given us many tools, not only to flourish, but also to cope with difficult times. So the idea of flourish, I think the word itself got people going out and buying the book. The idea of flourish is beyond even what psychology might say is a possibility for us. And certainly during the cultivating emotional balance training, and drawing on examples of the great meditators of the past who have achieved, and of today, who have achieved exquisite states of mind beyond what gets measured by psychology generally as being a state of well-being, a state of mental health. So it's really the only thing limiting is ourselves, really, isn't it? But also to cope with difficult times in life, like right now in the world, it seems to be so much upheaval at all levels in the world. You know, we're dealing, of course, we talk about these times of great degeneration, the degeneration of, we can see in terms of the environment, we can see in terms of war and conflicts at all levels. From, you know, you just have to look at social media or not. And in terms of increasing illnesses, physical illness, mental illness. I saw in the headlines this morning about as the ice caps are melting, and I heard it a while ago, that more and more viruses will be released. So we're having more epidemics, pandemics. And then we're looking at food shortage, right? Which also the World Health Organization said at the beginning of the pandemic that after this there will be famine. Of course, His Holiness Dalai Lama's Upper Rinpoche indicated all of that as well, you know. So it's a very destabilizing time in the world. So we need to be able to draw on those resources, those positive resources, which are in our nature, to be able to really deal with the world, including becoming a kinder driver. So Dr. Keltner, so professor of psychology, University of California, Berkeley, the founder of the Center for Greater Good. When I first heard there was a Center for Greater Good, I was just like, how fantastic is that? Center for Greater Good. At the time, I couldn't envisage having such a thing in Australia, but in 1998, before the development of positive psychology, and he was one of the people at the very foundation of that, he wrote about awareness of the function and effects of emotion. And also Barbara Fredrickson, also at the Center for Greater Good, fielded the role of positive emotions in promoting psychological resilience, which we need for dealing with times of difficulty. So resilience and well-being. So she talked about, or developed this model, which she called broaden, with 2 B's, I've forgotten what the other one is, of the, you know, positive emotions broaden our awareness of the world, allowing us to be more in tune with the needs of others. So you can see how this is resonating with what the Buddha taught when we look at constructive emotions, positive states of mind. And looking at this idea of perspective and broadening our awareness, in the 1980s, I did a workshop with Jean Houston. Jean Houston is one of these great orators. She comes from an Episcopalian background in the US. She was one of the think tank with His Holiness Dalai Lama for the Dalai Lama, what ended up being recorded in the Dalai Lama Renaissance films, where they had, like, I think 40 people from different fields coming together for a week-long conference and presenting to His Holiness about, well, what's the future in the arts? What's the future in science? What's the future in mathematics? What's the future in psychology? What's the future in education? And one of the things from that workshop that I did that really, a lot of things stood out for me. But she said, people go around going, nothing good ever happens to me, nothing good ever happens to me, nothing good ever happens to me. To look up, look out and engage. You know, because when we are self-absorbed, or feel, you know, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, isn't it? By not engaging, and we go inwards in a not helpful way. Look up, look out, engage with others. So then looking at the components of emotion from a Western science perspective and from a Buddhist perspective, which we did touch on last time, but here looking at this in the context of constructive emotions. So according to Western science, having a physiological component, chemical, electrical changes in the brain, because we can measure those. Galvanic skin response, we can measure that. Heart rate, there's a typo there. We can measure that. You know, changes in the body, we can measure that. Say that because that's how still in science, it's validated by being able to measure. And then an experiential component, a subjective experience, which is described as a psychological mood or feeling aspect of an emotion. And the behavioral component, the words and actions of a person motivated by that emotion. So we could see there's a resonance there. So within Buddhism, it says, yes, there can be physiological elements that may accompany the emotions, but are not the emotions themselves. So this is very helpful. Say we're meditating on awareness of something like anger, not a positive emotion, anger, and what physiological feedback we get from that, how we know in terms of our physiology of, you know, the heart rate increasing, the increased warmth in the body, clenching the jaw, tightening the fists or muscles. And so we observe that, we can observe that, but it says it's not the emotion itself. So this is, if we can separate out that physiological response, saying, that's not the actual emotion, the emotion is a mental thing. And then we can get some separation. We can use those feedback loops when we feel those experiences and learn to relax, release, let go of those. And then the behavioral elements, the actions of body and speech, are the effects of the emotion. So this is what we talk about. We talk about that, what's your mind, but again, we can say we have an emotional outburst or so forth, but it's not the actual emotion. It's the result of that emotion manifesting in our mind to such an extent that we can't any longer hold it in check, and it comes out in our words, in our actions. So this is where, again, in the cultivating emotional balance training, and Paul Ekman doing an emotional timeline, saying how quickly can we bring that light of awareness in to notice those responses, to be able to intervene when it's just very, very subtle before it's manifest, even within our mind, you know, at a coarse level where we really notice it. So noticing and understanding emotions in oneself is considered one of the 4 key ingredients of emotional intelligence. We have to notice. We have to notice what's going on in our minds. Whether we start with that on the basis of the body or go directly to the mental experience. So this is similar to what the Buddha taught as well. This is coming from psychology point of view. Again, in those early days, 98, the experience of an emotion is reflected by changes in speech, body, and face. It's interesting that the distinction between the rest of the body and the face, because we generally relate to each other face to face, and we pick up on all those signals. I think something like neuro-linguistic programming picked up on this, the subtle facial expressions. Of course, we see in babies, there's nothing subtle whatsoever. From one second to the next, you see the change, you know, from one very overt facial expression of an emotional state to another, very quick to change. But then as we get older, we learn to mask, we learn to get more subtle in that facial expression. And again, this is primarily what Paul Ekman studied. He did it at some point say, I think I better go on to the rest of the body, but he started with the face and reading facial expressions to the point of being an expert witness in court cases, you know, such as the O.J. Simpson case, where someone had done a book deal, and they were a witness in the case, and the judge knew they'd done a book deal, but they didn't know the judge knew. And so when they were being questioned, they were lying, but it very well masked. And so when we were doing the CB training, they had to slow-mo that clip down so that we could see the gagging and reflexes and so forth, well, not reflexes, the gagging that indicated that the person was lying. But Paul Ekman, who's got a very trained eye, could pick that up immediately, you know, seeing the facial expressions. And we do without being trained necessarily. I mean, all of us do respond, you know, to people's body language, isn't it? You know, when someone says, I'm not angry, well, you don't believe a word they say. It's better at that point not to intervene, because they are very angry and you'll only get a toxic response. It's not. But we don't believe it because we read the body language. Or it could be, I'm so no, delete. That was excited. Oh yes, I'm happy. And you think, really? You know, don't believe that either, right? So we, you know, the body, what do we say? The body speaks louder than the words. So we do respond to that in others as well. And the example here, for example, a person who experiences joy may speak loudly, make a lot of gestures, and use positive words like beautiful and exciting. And what comes to mind? Wow, 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 wow. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Or maybe it's wow, 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 wow. Amazing, amazing, amazing. So here, this was from an article written in '98, and again, it resonates with those early days of the Mind and Life conferences with His Holiness the Dalai Lama from the mid-'80s. So, which a lot of these people who went on to have these roles or already had these roles in university. So this is why the richness of, you know, these fields, you can say to some extent influenced by His Holiness as well. As he said, you know, they've learned a lot from me. Constructive emotions lead to long-term happiness. This is coming from His Holiness Dalai Lama from that report of the first conference, the destructive emotions one. Numerous mental states are included in this category, such as the 3 root virtues. So we'll be looking at the virtuous factors subsequently. Non-attachment, non-hatred, non-ignorance. So non-hatred or non-delusion, not just the mere absence of hatred or delusion or ignorance, but rather something diametrically opposed to that. You know, the idea of non-hatred, non-delusion, non-ignorance, non-attachment seems not just, we don't say detachment, because people have all sorts of interpretations of the word detachment as a negative thing. So it's not that. This is why we study and look at mental factors and define them to get precisely at what they are, and for the negative ones to be able to differentiate the correct antidote that gets at, gets at the root of them and is able to strike them at the root. It also gives me a sense when I think non-hatred, non-attachment, non-ignorance, is that you sort of worked to get to that state of absence of those. We have to do a lot of work to get to the state of absence of those in the mind. And then as a result, we get this positivity of them being no more present in the mental continuum eventually, but chipping away in the meantime. Continuing from His Holiness, more spiritual states of mind, such as the practice of loving kindness and compassion, come when you experience empathetic states. The state of loving kindness, which His Holiness says is a spiritual state. He says, my religion is kindness. And if we look at all religions, the practice of loving kindness, compassion is emphasized in every single one. It doesn't mean it's only the domain of people who engage in spiritual practices. It is there in animals, to some extent, and in bucket loads in humans. They have an expansive focus, not a narrow one. So this sense of coming from a spacious mind, an opening mind, a fluid mind. And that spaciousness comes from engaging in analytical meditation. When we're engaging in analytical meditation on these constructive states of mind, we're imbuing the whole of the mind with that state, right? Cultivating that strongly in our mind. Not the narrow one that contracts. So as soon as we're in a state of contraction, we know things aren't going well for us, right? And underlying these is a sense of confidence. Confidence in our selves. It's an empowering energy, engaging in positive emotions, or courage. The courage to continue on with our spiritual practice, continue on with chipping away at the disturbing states of mind, cultivating positive states of mind. And then His Holiness says we need to find the brain activities that are the results of this kind of spiritual practice. So in other words, he's saying, come on, we've got to study these. And as you know, more recently they've put the electrodes here, studied the effects of compassion at the heart chakra before the brain response. And that it's much more powerful. Meditating on compassion has a much more profound effect, even on the brain, as they've noticed, in a positive way. Just doing 10 minutes a day for 2 weeks, it doesn't seem like a lot to do. Much more powerful than, say, mindfulness meditation, mindfulness of the breath, say. So we can look at this for ourselves in terms of enhancing our own virtuous qualities, our own constructive emotions, such as loving kindness. So first of all, we reflect on the benefits of those. What's the benefits and advantages? Sort of like we have to convince ourselves to get ourselves motivated to then apply the methods to nurture that, to nurture loving kindness, just as one example, and strengthen its characteristics. So we do that through our motivation, through meditation, and then in day-to-day life, we take care to cultivate and bring those causes of loving kindness in order to familiarize ourselves with it. So here we can pause to do exactly that, to do a meditation on loving kindness, and then we can just see what we notice as effects of that for ourselves. So sit comfortably so that your body's in a comfortable position for meditation. Feeling stable support from the ground below, for the weight of your pelvis. Surrendering that weight to the seat, to the cushion, to the floor. Anchoring it to the earth below, providing a stable, solid foundation for our meditation. The spine long and straight. Just naturally, without forcing. Bringing your awareness into the space of the body, and as you breathe out, think, releasing any tension and tightness anywhere, coming more and more to a state of comfort and ease in the physical space of your body. Bring the breath into any places that feel constricted or tight, and just release, soften, let go. And take 3 long, deep breaths in, breathing through your nostrils down into your belly and expanding the diaphragm and then the chest. Exhaling effortlessly, setting your body in its natural state of rest. And continuing to attend to the natural rhythm of your breath in and out, releasing also anything distracting the mind, thoughts, emotions. Simply setting your awareness in a state of relaxation, stillness, and clarity. From that, within that state of stillness and clarity, I'm just going to contemplate a few ideas, a few questions to invoke the spirit of loving kindness, the experience of that. The first one is to think, what would I love to receive from the world in order to have a happy, meaningful, fulfilling life? This is the source of my well-being. What would I like to receive from the world? It might be tangible things like shelter, food, or the necessities of life, clothing, medical care. But it could be more intangible things like harmony in the environment, warm companionship of friends, wise advice from your teachers to guide you on your spiritual journey. So just bring to mind all the things that would enable you to flourish, to meet your basic needs. And think, may these authentic desires be fulfilled. Imagine that happening. Receiving those. resources. Is there act of loving kindness towards ourselves? And then pursuing this vision for your own happiness, your own well-being more deeply. What would you love to receive from the people around you, from the environment, that would help you find the happiness you seek? So call to mind whatever you feel would assist you fulfilling your heart's desire. And imagine that the world rises up to meet you here and now and provides you with all the support, all the external support needed to fulfill your aspiration. Just go for it. Each of us is changing moment by moment, day by day. Our bodies, our mind, constantly transforming, changing, state of flux, transformation. So then think, well, what sort of person do I want to become? What sort of qualities do I want to possess or already possessing, enhance? So because we're changing all the time, moment to moment, we can envision these changes happening right now, the things you'd like to experience in your evolution as a human being, as your evolution on the spiritual path. You can think of in the immediate short term, you can think longer term. Who do I want to become? And as you envision that, contemplate that, imagine that transformation is actually happening here right now. You are that. And with all those resources and transformation, we can turn ourselves to attend with loving kindness towards others. You know, none of us lives in absolute isolation from each other. No matter how we live, where we live, we are inevitably, constantly influencing those around us. In our actions, our inaction, our speech, our silence. So just think we're making an impact on the world, whether we intend to or not. So then think, what would I love to offer the world? To those around me, to the environment at large. What sort of mark would I like to leave in the world? It may be in direct relationship with our family and friends, maybe our community, maybe reach further, maybe in terms of the environment. Whatever it is, think. Think about how you could achieve this vision for yourself, your contribution. And think of as many details as you like, and imagine that dream is becoming reality here right now. So just as we seek happiness for ourselves, so does everyone else around us in our environment, in our neighborhood, in our Dharma community and beyond. So expand your awareness with loving, caring regard out to more and more human, non-human, all the animals and the insects and so forth. Thinking, may each of you, just like me, find the happiness you seek. May you be healthy. May you live in safety. May you live with comfort and ease. May you find the happiness you seek. May you be healthy. May you live in safety. May you live with comfort and ease. And expanding out to include more and more beings throughout the world, each seeking happiness just like you. May each of you, just like me, find the happiness you seek. May you be healthy. May you live in safety. May you live with comfort and ease. And allow that feeling of well-being, of loving kindness to just soak into the whole of your mental continuum. And abide there for as long as you can without distraction. So we can think that, you know, whatever taste of loving kindness, do we experience a sense of well-being as a result of even that brief time in meditation? Therefore, can we see the benefits of that? So, if so, then we're aware of the benefits, we're aware of tools that we have. We have many, many meditations on loving kindness. You know, the first, it was one of the first meditations I think I did consistently over a period of time, you know, metta meditation. I had a little metta meditation book. And it's the classic one of, you know, sending loving thoughts towards yourself, someone close to you, someone distant in that familiar but not familiar, and then the difficult one. And of course I did that because I was having difficulty with someone and I really wanted to deal with that from my side. Okay. And then evenly towards all. So that's like a classic approach to a loving kindness meditation. This one's a little bit different, so I quite like that. Starting with ourselves. And then slowly, slowly, as we get better, widening it out. So we know that, you know, it's beneficial for us, but how is it that we're not able to respond in that way in the situations that actually call for that sort of response? Why doesn't it happen? Or maybe it does. If it does happen, tell me how you do it. But it's something to think about, isn't it? You know, that we do it in those, so, you know, it's a thing of investigation of, well, what prevents me from thinking about it, engaging with loving kindness in the difficult situations, you know, that one I had on the end, the difficult one. Or perhaps any success stories with that? Nobody wants to say a word. Okay.
Yeah,
Susan.
Sorry,
with when it doesn't happen, it's because your eye rises up.
Oh, the eye's very good at rising up, the self-cherishing mind. Yeah. Susan?
I had to use that with my brother.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had to speak with my brother to do with some family issues. And I kind of cut him out of my life while I was having much to do. And then when I came back to Perth, I worked on that kind of loving kindness and compassion aspect, just doing the simple breath meditation with Andrew there. And I was so pleased I did, because although we never connected in a big way, he died 2 years later.
Yeah.
But I'd sorted out how I felt about it before.
Yeah. So you'd worked on your own mind.
Yeah, all I could do was work on my mind, because this stuff that had happened didn't happen.
To have that towards your brother before he died. And, and then you can feel at peace with that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And it's just like, I did what I could do.
Got to work on like that with my dad at the moment.
Oh, we've got.
I think he mistreats my mum.
We have endless, as Geshe Zopa says, OCs, objects of compassion. Oh, you're my object of compassion, or loving kindness, or both.
Yeah,
you know, both. So, yeah, we can have lots of opportunities for that. But as you describe, by, you know, from a distance, you know, not while engaging, to be able to cultivate that, it takes a lot of work, doesn't it? To be able to come to that point where you feel like, okay, now I'm satisfied that I've come to the point of being able to access that towards a family member who I had difficulty with.
Kind of forgiveness side that you might hold it in your heart without kind of even realizing it.
Yeah.
And when that's gone, it's so therapeutic for yourself.
Yes, when it's gone, it's very good. And then we're like, oh, now I've got it, and now I've got to work on with somebody else. So it's not gone completely, but it's shown you, I can do this, you know, I can really transform that relationship from my side, regardless of what it is from the other person's side.
I was sitting in the restaurant yesterday. We had a family meal out, and I was getting impatient or angry at my husband because I felt like he didn't want to order what I wanted to eat.
Oh, family restaurant wars.
But I got a little bit of help because I was feeling really frustrated and angry. I'm sitting there moping, and it was a Nepalese restaurant, so there was an image of the Buddha right in front of me, and I'm like, okay. Okay, so there's no way of not dealing with this because the Buddha's right at me in the restaurant, so I can calm down. And,
just as well, it was a Nepali restaurant, and there was a Buddha saying, "Come on, girl, you know what to do here." And you know, having these prompts is wonderful. So bring it on, a Buddha in every restaurant where the family is going to be having a fight.
I find it helpful to think of gradations.
Gradations,
rather than, am I able to bring my clients to this situation?
Yeah.
To this person. To think what's possible.
Yes.
And do something.
Yeah.
That could be helpful. And then, rather than, sometimes the words can seem very large.
Yes.
They can occupy a lot of space. And it seems, if I have that thought of image of what it's supposed to be like, then it's a little unhelpful to generate something.
Yeah.
And then do it. And then.
So you're saying having an image helps?
Not necessarily like.
Oh, having an image of how I want it to be like is not helpful. I see what you mean. Yeah. I see what you mean. Yeah. So it's breaking it down into little baby steps, you know, the gradation of just try something a bit different, circuit breaker, another one, and that's like this practice. Yeah.
And then accumulating that in some way, so it's enriching. Yeah. So like with this, it's sort of like within the meditation, like the one we just did, of really focusing on ourselves for most of the time. You know, we often go straight to the other, and the I arising goes, what about me? But if we don't have that towards ourselves, we can't have it towards the others either in a genuine, sustainable way. So yeah, that's a really good idea. I'll just try a little baby step, just change one little thing in the interaction. It feels well, also, if we try one thing and it doesn't work, we might give up, and then we've got to realize, well, it takes more than one little because it's having an expectation that, you know, didn't you notice I didn't react to you? That's the I arising. All right, so we can look at that. We can look at what are the things that prevent us from just experimenting, just trying. And from my experience, when I've just tried something different and the response, or actually, I'm not sure what the response from the other person, but I felt better that I had done something differently, right? It feels a bit weird because it's different. You're trying something different, but then it's like, oh, I think I handled that okay. And give yourself a pat on the back and encourage yourself. Yeah. So this presentation also involves looking more broadly at, you know, minds and mental factors. So we'll start looking at these, not to look at all of them, but to look at the common ones, and of course the virtuous factors. So A lot of this is from Geshe Tashi's Buddhist psychology, which was part of what was the foundation of Buddhist thought program. He says there are many metaphors to describe the relationship between the main mind and mental factors. In some way, you can see the main mind as the screen in a cinema, with the mental factors, the images projected upon it. We never really see the screen because we are so caught up in the stories projected onto it. The mental factors color and determine our understanding of the main mind, which is much more neutral and unadorned. It's really helpful. So I love the analogy of the projection on the screen, because, and the fact that we don't see the screen, which is like the unadorned mind. If you think about a movie screen, it's blank, isn't it? It's just clear. So the nature of our mind is like that, unadorned. It's not full up with all these images that get projected on it, the nature of the mind. So it can be separated from those, and you know, we can distinguish in between. And we get caught up in the images, the projections of our mind, without necessarily interrogating their truth or even their validity in terms of existence. So a sense of having connection with the direct perceptual mind, which is just completely that, not with all the elaborations on top. However, for those minds to function, we need certain mental factors. So the question, can more than one consciousness operate at the same time? As Geshe Tashi says, actually we feel that we can easily watch TV and listen to it at the same time. So watch and listen, so two different sense faculties, sense consciousnesses. And it may seem that there are two main minds operating simultaneously, but in fact, what is happening is that the mind is switching from I main mind to ear main mind and back again so rapidly that we experience the illusion that both are happening together. So it's too quick. We can't distinguish, oh, that was a eye sense, that was a eye perception, that was an ear perception. We can't, we talk about it when we unpack minds and mental factors, but in fact, it's so quick that we can't distinguish. We can't distinguish between I perceiving and then the projection from the mental consciousness on top. So it's very, very subtle. And years ago, there was a SBS program, Test Your Brain. Actually, there's another one at the moment on ABC. I don't know if anyone's about the brain. The other day it was about sleep and the importance of sleep. Very interesting. And the one before was, I think, on more like this, of all the input we're getting. Might have been the effect of media, social media. I have to go back and watch again. Anyway, so on this Test Your Brain, it was on SBS many years ago. And one episode was on concentration, and they had a magician on it, and the person was told to, you know, put up their arm and look at a certain point, something like that. They were engaged physically and with their eyes. Meantime, this magician took his wallet, took his phone, took his watch, took his scarf around his neck, and just showing that you know, that you're so focused on that you're not aware of this. They showed this a bit on the first program of the brain, the recent one as well. But this other one was a guy who convinced he could multi-skill, that he was expert at it. His family believed it. His workplace believed it, because he was just like firing on all fours all the time. And so they put him in a simulated lab, driving a car, simulated driving a car, thankfully, in the normal conditions that he believed that he was very good at multi-skilling, which was the kids having a conversation in the car, and then somebody ringing him on the phone and asking him, it mustn't have been in Australia, you would have been fined, right? Asking him, it was simulated, just really easy things like, what's your address, where do you live? And, you know, things he wouldn't have to be too cognitively engaged with, could just respond. Right. And then randomly, there'd be this big orange ball that would come out in front of the car, just randomly. And at the end of the test, they said, well, guess what? You're just so average. You're just like everybody else, that you're not engaging like that all the time. You know, you're not actually multi-skilling. It's just like this. You're going quickly from one thing to the other to the other. And so his whole belief about himself just got blown away by this, which is a good thing, because we all hold that idea, right? Isn't it? Because it's so quick, we can't tell when it's going from one thing to the next. So it's just very interesting, because it's like with this whole Buddhist presentation on mind and mental factors, it seems like, oh, this happens, then this happens, then this happens, but things happen so quickly we can't perceive.
I always found like teaching people play musical instruments, you get people that are really, really smart, they have fantastic coordination, they're very musical, they know what's in tune, they've got good rhythm, but they cannot play violin. You know, you think with all those,
they've got all the conditions together to play the violin well,
why
but
can't they play violin well?
Yeah.
So you can never kind of predict which students are actually going to do
ah, have you been able to come up with why some can and some can't play well?
It must be the way the brain talks to itself, all these different parts of the brain.
Yeah.
In the really good musicians, it happens so quickly.
Yeah.
Although those different parts connecting up, the tactile, the visual, the audio.
Right. Yeah.
Connect up really quickly.
Actually, you've probably seen, is it Stern, from Mao to Mozart?
Yeah, Isaac Stern. Yeah.
Isaac Stern, yes. Yeah. Because what seemed, so that was post Cultural Revolution in China, wasn't it, where people had been suppressed from engaging in such frivolities as playing violins, but he had them there playing violins, and it seemed to be the lack of the emotional engagement was what was missing, because they were technically perfect, but the emotion wasn't there.
So motivation?
No, emotional
it's like
engagement in the music.
Classical music.
Yeah.
You hear it around you.
Yeah.
You grow up with that, you kind of imbibe it. But in China, they didn't have that. And
Yeah.
They showed in that.
Yeah.
Kind of like it.
Yeah.
Expressive.
Yeah. So important. Okay, so looking at, main minds and mental factors, they have these 5 similarities. So we have a main mind, so sense consciousness, and then you have the other mental factors that come along, says in its entourage. I love that phrase, in its entourage. It's just like the whole entourage comes along with it. So the same base, they depend on the same cognitive faculty. So if it's depending on eye sense perception, eye consciousness, and so forth, same observed object. So eye consciousness, shape, color, ear consciousness, sound, so forth, so forth. They have the same aspect. They reflect a similar aspect of the object. So what image or engagement we have with that. And they arise, cease at the same time. So they arise, abide, and cease simultaneously. So eye consciousness is not engaging all the time. You know, it's engaging a lot of the time when we're awake. But, you know, it engages in relation to particular objects. And the same substantial entity. So what does that mean? So same substantial entity. So each mental state has only one primary consciousness and one of each of its accompanying mental factors. And the primary mind and all its accompanying mental factors are either conceptual or non-conceptual. So if it's mental, it's going to be conceptual, or non-conceptual is direct sense perception. And then it can be mistaken or non-mistaken. We can investigate that in terms of the mistaken ways we apprehend objects. And we'll be looking at these in subsequent weeks in terms of different types of consciousness. So that's in general. And then we talk about that for the mind to function, there's got to be 5 omnipresent mental factors. They're always there with the functioning, because the main mind can't function without those. So no matter what the main mind is, whether it's mental consciousness, eye consciousness, ear consciousness, taste consciousness, tactility, smell consciousness, it has all of these 5 factors of feeling, discrimination, intention, mental engagement or attention, and contact. And these happen simultaneously. And again, it's like we present them as if it's like one after the other sequentially, or that they happen separately. But that's really just to describe their function. So whether the mind is present for a long time or the briefest moment, these 5 mental factors are always involved. And Geshe Tashi says some scholars use the term units in reference to these, a unit of mind. The main mind plus the always present, omnipresent mental factors compose a unit of mind, or we could say a moment of mind, but maybe a moment of mind is too long already, you know, a micro moment of mind. And that it can't function fully without any one of these being present. So even in any moment of perception, there's a hell of a lot already going on, right? A lot of engagement of the mind in that. So feeling, the experience of pleasure, pain, neutrality. So here we're talking about this in terms of a mental factor, and that is a result of our past actions. In other words, related to karma, whether we experience something as pleasurable or unpleasurable or neither. So this morning, when I saw that the sun was out and about and it was all looking very beautiful earlier, I was like, wow, defied the weather prediction. It's, you know, this is our good karma that we're experiencing sunshine. Well, it depends what you think about a cloudy day, because it might be indifferent. Oh, yeah. And can lead to reactions, as you can see from me, of attachment. You know, you want more of the same, you want more of the pleasure, or anger, having an aversion to the experience of pain, which is a sensible thing, because, you know, we want to make sure if it's a pain that needs to be dealt with, we want it to be dealt with. So maybe not anger in response to pain. Anger's usually in response to, mostly, isn't it, to other people more than our aches and pains. Or an indifference or confusion and so forth. So, okay, so that's that feeling aspect that is happening all the time. Are we aware of that? That the mind is experiencing pleasure or displeasure or neither? We're not really aware of that most of the time until it gets really, really manifest, is it? Okay.
I guess if you've got depression, then the mind is always feeling.
Well, it's interesting. You can say, or depression or anything, that then you investigate. Is the mind always feeling either neutral or unhappy in that state? Is it always? Is it 100% all the time? Is depression 100% all the time? It can feel very much like that, right? But like with anything else, are there moments of non-depression in that time? Like, are there times when you actually feel joy? Are there times when, or you actually feel the absence of the depression? So these are some ways that we can investigate and see, is it like a blanket 100% of the time? Right? Of course, when you're in depression, it's very hard to do that. Well, depending on the level of depression, like in a clinical depression, it'd be very hard to do that. But having the prompts to, well, let's investigate the nature of this depression. In fact, if you look at, for example, how to meditate, the section that Venerable Sangye Kadro has there on dealing with negative energy and different ways of trying different perspectives to see how does my mind engage with this negative emotion? How can I look at it from a different perspective? The same with pain, that if I investigate pain, I always use as the example this knee, even though it's not in pain. Thank you very much to the surgeons, it's now no longer in pain. But the mind builds a whole story of that pain that's, for me, out here somewhere, which is our protection zone. Don't come near my knee. And it's fine, you can, my knee's fine. But I've still got this story, right? And then I have to investigate, well, where is the pain? At the moment, I have to say there's a total absence of pain. So the only place it could be in is in my memory of pain, for example. So really investigate how pervasive is any one of these things in our mental continuum. It's very useful. And then discrimination, that which distinguishes this is this and not that. And so, you know, I look at the cup, or I distinguish cup by eliminating everything that's non-cup. Am I aware of doing that? Absolutely not. It's cup, right? Well, it's actually a mug with a lid on. So we're not aware of that, but that's what we do. We look at the particular characteristics of what is cup and then, you know, identify it separate to, you know, because I know what is unique about cup, you know, flat-bottomed vessel suitable for holding water. And then we have intention. We talk a lot about setting our motivation, setting our attention at a very deliberate level, but this is a more subtle level that is there, an intention to walk out the door, right? It's a functional thing. So I have to engage with the object, door. I have to know what the door is. The door is open. It makes it easier to walk out the door. Can we say walk out the door when the door is open? You can see the craziness of my mind. Okay. So it moves the primary consciousness and the accompanying mental factors to the object. So if I want to go out the door, it moves the mind to the door. You know, I think I want to go out the door. Okay, I see the door. So it's conscious, automatic, motivating element that causes the mind to involve itself and apprehend its object. There's the door. So it is action, karma. It can be dependent on the accompanying feeling of that. It can be pleasurable, it can be unpleasant, it can be neutral. You know, I want to go out the door just because to get to the other side. It's neutral, right? But if I say, I want to go out the door to open the door to the path to enlightenment or liberation, or use a bodhicitta motivation for going out the door, which I'm going to do anyway, then it becomes something of virtue, doesn't it? So it becomes very pleasurable. Very pleasurable going out of the door. Or I can say, I want to go out the door because I'm just fed up, and slam the door closed. That's very unpleasant for everybody. Oh, okay. We might have to pause here. Although the mental factor of intention itself is not constructive or destructive or neutral, as I demonstrated just then with that example, it becomes that dependent on what are the mental factors accompanying it. Okay, so I think we'll leave it there for today. Continue on next installment next week. Continue on with the mental factors. So let's dedicate. Lama Sangye Nurgyone Drowa Chikyam Mahalopa Dehe Sahala Pasho Jancho Sencho Rinpoche Maki Panam Ge Kuchi Ye Panyam Pame Payang Gong Ne Gong Du Pelwa Shu. Page 19, Long Life Quits. Jik Ten Kam De Pende Malupan Gang Le Shung Wei Sam Peli Jino Kadrin Sume Tenzin Gyat Sola Sowa Detsu Toshirundu. Page 22. Tu su shan shi chang gun gyao wei tin zin gyan pel wei kon zog du po se chu sung ko wei le mon tu dru pa da so do shi gun lu jab ti shu. Lord of Dharma, who in accordance with the various dispositions of those to be subdued, makes clear in the light of your well-spoken advice the sacred Ganden tradition essence of Buddha's teachings. O foremost and holy Lama, to you who are supreme, O Lama, please, please live long.